I decided to let my parents stay in our house. Luke, however, had something else to say, and with your inability to cook, it's really inconvenient, he remarked. Then, with all the audacity, he suggested I leave. I couldn't believe my ears. He approached me grinning, as though he had just accomplished something impressive. I was so stunned for a moment, but quickly regained my composure. I would never let my parents live in our house. But you put your relatives here without asking me, I said, my voice trembling with anger. And now you want to kick me out, the rightful owner? Luke's arrogance had been getting under my skin for a long time, but at that moment, it was unbearable. I couldn't continue living with someone who acted as though he owned everything, especially when he wasn't contributing financially. I'm Addison, a woman in my 40s, and I work hard to provide for our family. Luke, my husband, stays at home doing household chores. I appreciate his efforts, but his overbearing attitude was starting to suffocate me. His endless requests, like asking me for ice cream in the middle of the night, had become grating. When I refused, he'd remind me of his husbandly authority, making me boil with indignation. His need to constantly assert his dominance based on his gender made me furious. Dealing with his behavior on top of my demanding job was simply too much. I'm so tired, I told him, barely able to speak. I can't keep living like this, I added, retreating to my room, hoping to escape the tension, but Luke wasn't having it. He came after me, demanding an explanation. Why are you acting like this, Addison? You can't just walk away, he snapped, trying to control me even further. Exhausted, I mustered a weak smile and apologized, hoping he would understand my exhaustion. I'm just so tired, Luke, please try to understand, I begged. Luke's disappointment in me grew, but I couldn't summon the strength to argue. I apologized again and retreated to my room, feeling crushed by his overbearing nature. Day after day, I endured his tyranny, drained by his constant demands. The tipping point came when I fell ill, feverish and weak from stress. I had to take a day off work. When I told Luke, he dismissed me, accusing me of exaggerating and refusing to help. You're just being dramatic, Addison. You can still get up and do your chores, he said coldly. Alone in my room, feverish and unable to care for myself, I lay there in agony. I longed for a simple act of kindness, a cold compress, a comforting word, but nothing came. The loneliness was suffocating, and I couldn't stop questioning why I was being treated this way. What had I done to deserve this? The pain, both physical and emotional, brought me to tears. When the fever finally broke after 3 days, I had to return to work. My colleagues noticed my exhaustion and expressed genuine concern. Are you okay, Addison? You look wiped out, one of them asked. Their compassion contrasted so sharply with Luke's callousness that it almost brought me to tears. I could feel myself reaching the breaking point. I knew I couldn't keep going like this with Luke, but I couldn't gather the strength to do anything about it. Despite my fading affection for him, I felt trapped by the life we had built. Every day, I worked tirelessly, only to come home and be subjected to Luke's whims. It was draining me, both physically and emotionally. One day, Luke called me to talk. It had been a while since we had a serious conversation, and his unusual excitement intrigued me. Addison, we need to talk, he said eagerly. I sat down to hear what he had to say. Luke, with an energy I hadn't seen before, dropped a bombshell. I've decided to let my parents move in with us, and by the way, your inability to cook is inconvenient, he said, his words cutting deep. What shocked me even more was his plan to force me out of the house. I want to change the house ownership to include my parents, divorce you, and start a new family, he said, his tone final. Your objections won't change anything, he added. I was stunned, dizzy from the suddenness of it all. Why can't we live with your parents instead? I asked, my voice trembling. They want to be close to me again, he said dismissively. Addison, as the man of the house, it's my decision, Luke declared arrogantly, ignoring my feelings entirely. In that moment, I knew I couldn't stay in this relationship any longer. His selfishness was unbearable. Luke chuckled, as if I were blind to his desires. You're blinded by your love for me. I just want to take care of my family, he said dismissively. I haven't loved you for a long time, I responded quietly. I've already fallen out of love with you. All that's left is my shock at your selfishness and regret for not ending things sooner, I added. Luke seemed to think that my reluctance to divorce meant I still had feelings for him. If you leave, you'll be on your own. Are you sure about this? He asked, his voice shaky. I'll leave, I replied, my decision firm. Luke, clearly caught off guard by my response, tried to regain control. "You won't survive without me," he said. "I've already fallen out of love with you," I repeated, feeling liberated by my decision. Letting go of what isn't necessary is freeing. My words hung in the air, leaving Luke stunned and confused. I nodded, thanked him for everything, and walked out of the house. At my parents' place, I explained the situation. While they were furious at Luke's behavior, they quickly realized I had a plan. With their support, I began the healing process. The first step was the divorce. After sending the papers, Luke messaged me, unsure about the situation. I clarified my feelings, and he went silent. A few days later, I received the completed divorce papers. I filled out my part and submitted them to the county office. Luke and I were now strangers. I was finally free from the burden of supporting the household as Luke's wife. During the divorce, we split our assets. Luke took the house, which had been a source of stress for me from the beginning, so I was more than happy to let it go. Instead, I chose alimony. Since Luke wasn't working, his parents had to foot the bill, though I suspected he was actively searching for a job, likely planning to repay them once he found steady employment. Of course, things don't always go as planned. A month after the divorce, I had settled into my new home, enjoying the peace I had longed for. Then, I received a call from Luke. A surge of frustration rose in me, but ignoring him could cause more problems. So, for the sake of my future, I decided it was time to handle it. "Hello, what do you want after all this time?" I answered the phone. I was barely holding it together, and his desperation only made me more irritated, but I needed him to get to the point. "Please help me," he begged. His desperate tone only made me laugh bitterly. I knew something had gone wrong for him, but the extent of it still surprised me. "What happened? You'll have to tell me," I said, though I had an idea of what was going on. I wanted him to explain himself. Hesitant and stumbling over his words, Luke began to tell me. "I became the sole owner of the house. I managed fine for a month, but now I can't pay the rent. I thought my parents, living on a pension, could cover it, but the rent is $1,800, and they can't afford it. They're furious with me. They came to me for an explanation, and now I don't know what to do. That's why I'm calling you. I'm lost," he explained, his voice filled with regret. As frustrated as I was, part of me couldn't help but feel a small sense of satisfaction seeing him face the consequences of his actions. He blamed me for not warning him about the lease terms, but I reminded him that his ignorance was entirely his fault. "You pushed me away and treated me like an outsider, and now you're reaping the results," I said firmly. Surprised by his nerve in calling me, I listened as he continued to plead for my help, still unaware of how much his actions had hurt me. "I need your help. We can't keep going like this," he said urgently, his voice tinged with desperation. It was clear they were feeling the pressure. I imagined the rent was overdue, and they might already be behind. I remembered the landowner's strict rules about late payments, which Luke surely knew all too well. "I have no one else to turn to. You still care about me, right?" His words oozed selfishness, expecting me to help just because we were once married. I wanted to tell him that my feelings for him were long gone, but I held my tongue. Instead, I responded coldly, "Why should I help you? You're the one who left me. Isn't it a bit convenient that you're asking for my help now?" Luke tried to justify himself, begging for my understanding. "Please don't be so cold. I can't do this without you. Whether you love me or not doesn't matter now. We used to be married. Can't you help me just this once?" he pleaded. "No," I replied firmly, my patience running thin. "It's been a long time since I stopped loving you. You left me, and before that, my feelings had already started to fade." My words carried the weight of everything I had endured over the years. When I spoke those words, I could hear the shock in Luke's voice. It hit me like a wave. For so long, I had put up with his selfishness, mistreatment, and indifference. I tried my best to make our relationship work, but now this was the outcome. The question that haunted me was why I hadn't left sooner. Why did I wait so long to distance myself when my love for him had already faded? Regret flooded me, mingled with anger toward him. Luke had never been there for me. He never cared for me, never tried to protect me, never treated me as an equal. He had always seen me as a maid or an ATM. He remained oblivious to my struggles, and yet, now he had the audacity to ask for help as if he were the victim. His self-centeredness was suffocating. "Please help me. I'm begging you. What if we remarried? This time, we'll do it right. I swear I'll never kick you out again," he said in a last-ditch attempt to win me over. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly at his proposal. "Remarry you? Are you serious? All of this is because of your own actions." I tried for so long to get through to you, to make you face me. Now you want me to pretend like none of that ever happened? You want me to go back to those hellish days? That will never happen. I'm not going back to that life, no matter what, I exclaimed, my anger and sadness pouring out. Tears streamed down my face as I finally let it all out. Luke was silent on the other end. I couldn't take any more of this conversation, so I simply said goodbye and hung up. After that, I blocked his number, determined never to hear from him again. Later, I heard from mutual friends that Luke and his family had been evicted. He had tried to talk to my former in-laws and convince them to pay his rent, but they were furious and refused. Luke hadn't had much luck finding a full-time job, so he was working part-time to make ends meet. Apparently, my former in-laws had to sell their house and were now living in a cramped, run-down apartment, all three of them. As for me, I threw myself into my work. My boss even mentioned a possible promotion. I might be the first female manager at my company, and I earned respect from both colleagues and juniors. Friends sometimes asked, "Are you thinking about getting remarried?" Honestly, after everything I'd been through, the idea of dating or marrying again didn't appeal to me, but life was long, and I didn't feel the need to rush. At my age, many people lived unmarried lives. As long as I lived without regrets and stayed true to myself, that was all that mattered. I wanted to continue walking through life at my own pace, without anyone dictating my path. Thanks for watching, see you next time, stay stunned.